Good afternoon and greetings from San Juan, Puerto Rico. My name is Martin Cowart. I'm an everyday mystic, and thank you for joining my noonday meditation and contemplative prayer power hour, where we gather together every day, Monday through Saturday at noon Eastern Daylight Time to love and support each other through this pandemic. How did I become a mystic? And what is a mystic? And can you be a mystic? I would say if you're listening to my voice right now and you're part of this noonday meditation, you already are a mystic. It sounds like something pretty far out there, but actually an everyday mystic is just simply someone who is realized they're more than the egoic mind. They've transcended a self-identity as a separate individual and transcended that sense of self to a realization that we're part of something so much bigger, so much larger, so much more magnificent, so creative, that all those narcissistic concerns and worries literally dissolve. And we have the opportunity to become instruments, if you will, for the divine to live through us for the healing and the recovery of this world. Not just for the healing and the recovery, but for the thriving and the life-growing events that are occurring in the moment as they occur. It's a process. It's a transformational process. It usually happens out of some major life-changing event. As I shared in my story before on the post, it was in October of 2016, and I found myself lying in bed agonizing over my performance before the Mankind Project certification panel. I so badly wanted to get certified. I felt like I had to be certified. If I didn't get certified, it was worse than not making any money. I had to get it done. I had to have this very important achievement in order to be important and worthy, to feel important and worthy, to feel like I belong to the world. So I brushed up on all my most powerful points of the reasons why I should be, how smart and sophisticated I was, and how I knew how the protocols worked. I was just going to be brilliant for that panel. I knew I had it. And yet, they weren't buying it. It became very clear to me early on in my conversation as I answered their questions that no, they weren't buying it. And as I realized they weren't buying, the more and more fear came up. And then before it was all over, they actually shot holes through all those false beliefs, all those ideas that I thought were so important that made me important, and they didn't like it. And they lovingly, like the precision of a master heart surgeon, shot those beliefs and those opinions and those important attributes out from under me. And a friend of mine, as I came out, said to me, Martin, let's see who's here. Hello, Hassan. Glad to see you here. How are you today? I'm great. I'm just sharing a story of my own transformational journey here, and I think of how I became a financial mystic. So let's stay tuned, because if you're not a mystic, you could be soon. So just stay tuned, okay? And you too, Audrey, nice to see you here. I know you're a mystic. I know you have a heart of gold, and you're just one of the most beautiful, loving people that I know. So here I want to share a little bit, I'm sharing a little bit of my story of how I became a mystic. So I was lying in bed in agony because I knew I had performed badly. I knew they weren't buying it. And I was almost like I was in a rage. My ego was in a rage. These people are just, they don't understand me, and I was blaming them, and I was going on, and I was trying everything I could to soothe myself. So I could listen to my favorite country music. Nothing worked. And finally, late in the night, I remembered the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous, the first of 12 steps. And for those of you who are not aware, AA is really more, the 12 is really more of a path to enlightenment than it is about alcohol, but that's another subject. But what I realized in the middle of the night, that I had become obsessed with certification, similar to the way that I was once obsessed with alcohol, and it was making my life unmanageable. I was so focused on that. That was all I cared about. That was all that mattered. And it was all about me. And as soon as I said, I'm willing to surrender all of that, the most amazing thing happened. It felt as if kind of like a descending blanket of pure healing love, similar to the feelings that I would get when I worked at St. Paul's Chapel, literally descended through my body. And I felt a sense of peace and calm that just came. I'm back, Lord. The joys of vacation travel. Thank you for waiting for me to get back. But it became where I was in the story now. Oh, it was in the moment that all this happened that I get this sense of this like a warm. It wasn't warm. It was like this comforting blanket of love that just surrounded me and descended my body. And out of that, it wasn't hearing through my ears, but it was a deeper hearing within me, a voice deep within. You know, it makes me understand what they talk about when they talk about angels in the Bible. It was like an angel said to me. I don't know. That's maybe a little far-fetched, but it was like a deeper voice within me. It was something beyond this dimension. And it said to me, it doesn't matter. None of this stuff matters, Martin. All this stuff that you're so worried about and so concerned about making happen, none of that stuff matters. It doesn't matter if you're successful financially or you make money or you're certified with the Mankind Project. None of that stuff matters. All that matters, this is the most important thing I heard. This is what changed my life. All that matters is for you, Martin, to show up with love and gratitude, and the deeper I, the divine I, what I later called joy, will do the rest. I will do it. You show up with love and gratitude. You show up with an open heart. You show up and allow me to come forward and do the doing, and everything will change. And that's what happened. And from that point on, it was like for a few weeks, I was like skipping through the world in an altered state, holding hands with the universe, showing up for everything with love and gratitude. Now I've had some things happen since then, some certain challenges, and I think that's what happens. But that was the moment of my great awakening. That was the moment of my life, and nothing has been the same since that time in my life. And at that moment, I got something much better from those men than a certification in the Mankind Project. It's a valuable thing, and I'm still working towards that. But I'm doing it now from a place of love and not from a place of fear. But those men who lovingly shot through all of my false self and my egoic needs, pointed me to a much better place, to a much better table, the table of what I call everyday mystics. People just like you and me who realize we're part of something so much bigger, so much more, that we're allowing that part of ourselves to connect with us, and we consciously connect with it through prayer and through contemplative prayer and meditation, to connect with that higher source of power, to live through us for the betterment of the world and service to others. And that's a feast at that table. There is a feast at that table. Now I want to read a little bit today of what Richard Rohr had to say. This came out of actually yesterday's reading, but I just thought it touched me so deeply about my own transformational journey that I hope that it will. My hope for you is, if you're not yet there, and if you're in it's always that process, is that maybe COVID-19 has put us, for some people, in a place of feeling like I was, like disappointed and lost, and all their, with the disruption of COVID-19, you may be feeling all your dreams, your life savings, all that stuff that you worked so hard for, may feel like they're all going out the window. They're all, and what I want you to know is, at a deeper spiritual level within you, none of that stuff really matters. But you've got to realize it doesn't matter. I can't tell you it doesn't matter. You have to come to the realization that all the things, all those material things that seem to be so important to us, that may not come true, there may be a wonderful lesson in that, because you might find something truer about yourself. And that is that you might be a mystic too. And that means you get to play a real integral part of being an instrument for the divine light within you to shape the future of the planet, to create a life beyond our wildest imaginations. And that's a wonderful place to have a feast. That's a wonderful place to live. And we have to be reminded of it over and over. That's why it's called practice. Dorothy Sewell, from 1929 to 2003, is an example of a contemplative who finds she must take action. I met her once in Germany at the Kirchhof, an assembly sponsored by the German Evangelical Church, and was deeply impressed. She was a first-rate scholar and noted theological author. I've been especially influenced by her book, The Silent Cry: Mysticism and Resistance. For today's meditation, Carrie Walters and Robin Jarrell describe this contemplative activist. Society's conventional image of a mystic is that a person who withdraws from the world in order to journey inward. The mystic is stereotyped as a guru sitting in a splendid isolation on a mountaintop, utterly unconcerned with the world's affairs. But theologian Dorothea Soale, herself something of a mystic, argued that there's actually little accuracy in this portrayal. Far from being withdrawn from the world or indifferent to the suffering that goes on in it, the mystic is uniquely motivated and qualified to respond to social and economic justices. Could that be you? Could that be you? I know it's me. I will claim that. It is me. That is who I have become. Joyfully, who I have become. Far from being withdrawn from the world or indifferent to the suffering that goes on in it, the mystic is uniquely motivated and qualified to respond to social and economic injustices. Genuine mystics, like Bodhisattvas, don't renounce the world for the sake of a private spiritual illumination. Rather, they use the enlightenment they've achieved to do something about the world's ills. Rather, they use the enlightenment they've achieved to do something about the world's ills. We've found our enlightenment has shown us that we're so much happier and so much full of joy when we can allow that spirit to do within us for the betterment of the world. We can serve, we become servants of the creative force within us to speak and talk, write speeches, share our gifts, raise our family, love our partners, make a loving dinner, and get ready to make some wonderful red snap in a few minutes. The reason for this, says Soleil, is that mystics have been liberated from the three powers that typically hold humans in bondage: ego, possession, and violence. I can certainly say that experience for me has certainly liberated me from all of that bondage, the bondage of my ego and possession and violence. And isn't it time for the whole world to get itself free from the collective ego of possession and violence and control and domination? Hello, Darso. Nice to see you. This is a fun talk today. We're talking about being mystics, everyday mystics in the world. Mystics, mystics. Mystics recognize that the standardly accepted division between I and not I is an artificial one born from overvaluing oneself and competing with others for possessions, which in turn sets the stage for the onset of violence. Also sets the stage and the onset for systems that create inequalities, economic systems that dominate and control others, economic systems based in scarcity and fear that there's not enough, so that we create rules and programs and laws to empower a very few. That's painful. That is the result of the egoic mind's need to possess, and we are liberating ourselves as mystics to live into the mystery of life itself. The beautiful and exciting mystery of life begins to live through us for the betterment of the world. That is exciting. That is a fun banquet. They recognize the standardly accepted division between I and not I as an artificial one born from overvaluing oneself and competing with others for possessions, which in turn sets the stage for the onset of violence. But the genuine mystic understands that his or her connection with the divine is likewise a connection to all other humans and indeed to all of creation. A relationship, as Soleil said, that borrows the eyes of God. And that's what Eckhart Tolle calls being in the presence of now, is that we become the eyes of God because we are God. Not me, Martin Coward, or you, Audrey, or you, Hassan, or you, Darso, or Mindy. Not this one individual. That's the mistake we make. Our egos wants to think that that is it. But the deep I, that I in you that's hearing my voice, and the I in me that's speaking, is all the same undercurrent of life, creative life force energy that is within everything you see, touch, and feel. It's what's underneath different states of consciousness. It's what holds it all together. It's what makes it all happen, this invisible force. It was the void before the Big Bang. That's just how powerful it is. Patterns of opposition, but it gets to see the world is created through us. That's the excitement. It wants to see its creation, but it looks and says it is good, and it is evolving the human being to become more and more conscious of its own creative skill set, if you will. We are beginning to hone and master our creative skill sets, to master the art of being divine. That's what we're doing as mystics. And then we're allowing the mystery of life to just show up and flow through us. Patterns of opposition and resistance bred by the division of I and not I collapse to be replaced by ones of mutuality and community. Violence becomes obsolete because the conditions necessary for its eruption disappear. Soleil became interested in questions of religion and politics at an early age. She grew up under the Nazi regime and, like many Germans of her generation, never got over the shame of belonging to a nation that willingly collaborated with mass murderers. She was especially worried by the acquiescence of so many people who claimed to be Christian, and eventually concluded that part of the explanation was they had compartmentalized their faith, transforming it into a private and otherworldly thing. Another way is they've separated themselves from God. God is something else that does other things, not me. Now, if we claim our seat at the table as mystics, we come to realize that God is not only within us, but God is within everything that is. And we are it. And we don't have to possess or own anything because we have the keys to the kingdom. Convinced that such privatization is a perversion of faith. You think we recognize any of that perversion of faith in our world today? And not just in the Christian, fundamentalist Christian, but in all Islamic fundamentalists, all of them. All are guilty. Even Buddhists are guilty in being the right ones. There was a right one. There's only one. There's only one God, and it's it, and you're it. Convinced that such privatization is a perversion of faith, Sally worked as a theologian to demonstrate the social responsibility of religion as an activist to put her theology into practice. She became one of the Cold War's leading anti-nuclear voices, a dedicated opponent of both U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War and Soviet-style communism, and a proponent of liberation theology. The spiritual fuel of these activities was her conviction that the mystical worldview is revolutionary enough to resist powerful but purified institutions that trade in oppression and violence. The spiritual fuel of these activities was her conviction that the mystical worldview is revolutionary enough to resist powerful and petrified institutions that trade in oppression and violence. Consequently, her most important concern was to democratize mysticism, so that society might be truly democratized as well. Just 1 minute, somebody's at my door. Hold on 1 second. Isn't that profound? Isn't that what we're doing? Isn't it fun to be at the banquet of mysticism with other everyday mystics? It's exciting, isn't it? That's what we do every day. Come here and do our weird mystical stuff together, which is really not so weird after all. It's just living life freely with love. And that's exciting. So let's meditate. Let's meditate. I know this was a little long today, but it's a subject that's really near and dear to my heart. And that is to claim our seat at the table of mysticism, to be mystics at that banquet of love, bringing all yourself, especially those parts of ourselves we hide, repress, and deny. Bring it all. You're all welcome, and you're much loved. So let me get my thing here, my insight timer. And let's meditate now for 20 minutes. I'm going to turn off the timer today. I mean, I'm going to mute my phone today because I've got things going on around me. I don't want to distract you. So if you like, put on a little music, whatever you like. But let's just get into a little bit of heart space. And when I quit talking, I'm going to just mute my phone, okay? So come on, mystics. Raise your arms up in the air. As you see, I'm at the beach today. I'm in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I'm bringing up my arms. But I didn't, what raised my arms? The divine, that creative life. My muscles, it used my muscles, but I was willing to let go and raise my arms in the air, to feel that life force within me, to experience it. Feel it in your hands. As you got your arms up in the air, just feel in your hands a life. Then feel it down through your arms, your elbows, your shoulders. And now bring it into your heart. Put your hands on your heart. Yeah. And just be still for a moment and listen. Listen to your own heart beating. The heart is like a beacon. It's like the part within us where the oxygen comes down through our nose and down our throats and into our lungs and mixes with our bloods and becomes life. It's where the spirit becomes matter. Right here within us. That's the power, that life force. And that heart is kind of like a beacon, if you will, that connects all of us to all living things. So hold that with a place of preciousness and compassion, and hold it with empathy all the emotions of the world right now, particularly those who've yet to awaken to the truth of who they are, who are still deeply immersed in the pain body, with conspiracy theories and all kinds of nonsense of blaming others and doing this. And it's painful to hear and watch once you've been awakened. But if you don't know what this is, if you don't know what you are, you don't even know this exists. It's really hard. So let's have a little empathy for them. Remember back in the time before we were awakened, to wake them up to the truth of the love force within them. It's all wonderful. So just let go, hold on to nothing, and allow yourself to be present with the divine within you. I am not me. I am not me. I am Welcome back, all you fellow everyday mystics. Sounds so mysterious being a mystic. Promise you, it is. It's a lot of fun. It's quite a banquet. So I want to encourage you to um, find the mystic in you. Get to know the mystic in you. Get to know the divine presence within yourself through prayer and meditation. And with intention, ask that part of you, what is it we want to do today? What are we going to do today to make the world better? How do I add value? How do I add value in every single situation as it arises? And I say I'm going to show up with love and gratitude in every situation as it arises. And then ask that deeper part of myself, what do we need to do to add more value? Maybe it's just to be still and be present and listen. Maybe it's a friend who's feeling sad about the loss of a loved one. So maybe what we need to do is just show up with love and gratitude for the opportunity to be still and listen. Whatever it is. If we're willing to open our hearts to it and allow that life force to come forward, everything we need will happen. May love and prosperity prevail. I'll see you tomorrow at noon. Thank you for joining me today.